Edward Snowden's leaks may have caused a meltdown among the NSA's top brass trying to keep secrets. Meanwhile, the NSA's mass spying operations are literally causing meltdowns at its new spy center in Utah. The Wall Street Journal reports that the enormous $2 billion NSA data center under construction in Bluffdale, Utah, built to store everything the NSA is collecting, which we've recently learned includes all of Americans' phone metadata and at least 75% of all the internet communication within the U.S., is experiencing major technical problems. Now, since August, at least 10 electrical surges have led to important computers and components to actually melt. Each meltdown has resulted in $100,000 in damages. Now, in order to collect and retain the amount of information the NSA is interested in, this data center requires 65 megawatts of electricity. That works out to a monthly electric bill of about $1 million. It's believed that electrical grids at the center are unable to both run the computers, the massive computers that are necessary, and then cool them at the same time. But the Army Corps of Engineers says it's still unaware of what's causing the surges. And while that's going on in Utah, some of the NSA's biggest critics in Congress gathered here in Washington, D.C. at a Cato event to discuss the legal, economic, technological, and journalistic consequences of the NSA's spying habits. RT's Meghan Lopez was there, and she joined me earlier to break down what was discussed. Now, one of the characters in all this is Senator Ron Wyden, who's been speaking cryptically about these NSA secrets for a while, and now they've been exposed. So I asked Meghan if he had anything to say about that at the Cato conference.
He absolutely had a lot to say about it, Sam. As you mentioned, it's something that he's been talking about for years and for years. And he's obviously received a lot of pushback. First, there were a lot of people that didn't agree because he simply didn't have the evidence to prove this. And also, he's been receiving a lot of pushback from the NSA intelligence community itself. One of the things that he says was going to happen that actually did happen today, a little bit away from here on a different side of Washington, was that Keith Alexander and the NSA intelligence community are going to use media mischaracterization of government surveillance programs. He said it was going to happen. Sure enough, just about an hour ago, this article popped up, right? So actually, there was Congressman Amash was there as well, and he called Senator Wyden the congressional whistleblower because he uses his questions to get the intelligence community to try to say things that he himself is not allowed to say due to non-disclosure forms that he's had to fill out and certain intelligence community things that he's just not allowed to share. But he did say that he was very liberated to actually be able to have this opportunity to now speak on the record about it, and I think we have a clip of that.
In America, the truth always comes out. Any government official who thought that there wouldn't be disclosures about a constitutionally flawed, program just didn't read history. And I, in fact, outlined that history on the floor of the United States Senate several years ago when, A, I indicated that Americans would be stunned and angry when they learned, and B, that history shows that, fortunately, in our country, the truth always comes out.
So he also went on to say that he started asking those questions specifically about coming out with the FISA court orders as a way to pull the first thread to unravel this whole web of NSA surveillance that he knew about that he simply couldn't tell others. A very interesting point that he made was that the dragnet surveillance, or the bulk collection, has not had any real material help with the NSA terrorism programs and trying to find these people.
Yeah, I remember the interview he did with Rolling Stone a few weeks ago, and they asked him, because as a member of Congress, he has a privilege to be able to go on the floor and say anything, and he has immunity basically over that, and why he never thought about just spilling all these secrets before Edward Snowden on the floor, and he talked about how he sort of might have regretted that, but pretty interesting position he's been in over the last few years as a result of all this. Another member of Congress who's been very critical of the NSA and has actually moved legislation trying to defund the NSA is Congressman Justin Amash from Michigan, who's in the House. He was at this conference as well. What did he have to say about being a member of Congress, trying to get the information he needs to legislate properly when it comes to the NSA?
Well, the first thing that I should say is that the entire theme of this NSA Cato Institute conference was wording. Wording is very important because the wording that the NSA uses with the FISA Amendment Act and things like that determines how they can use the law. For instance, the word target. The way that you and I use target to think directly affects one person is not how the NSA sees it. Also, when it comes to Congress, the wording that they use to ask a question will or will not get an accurate response. So he talked about having to go 3 or 4 times, or having colleagues go 3 or 4 times and ask questions in very different types of ways in order to get the answer that they were looking for. And we actually have a clip from him as well.
You don't know what questions to ask because you don't know what the baseline is. You don't have any idea what kind of things are going on. You have to start just spitting out random questions. Does the government have a moon base? Does the government have a talking bear? Does the government have a cyborg army? If you don't know what kind of things the government might have, you just have to guess. And it becomes a totally ridiculous game of 20 questions. If you ask something in slightly the wrong way, they will tell you no. They'll say, no, we don't do that.
So as you can see, it all comes down to this wording. Both him and Senator Wyden went on to say that they are pushing for, obviously, the Amash Amendment, for Senator Wyden's bill in the Senate, and also for whistleblower protections going forward.
Did we find out if the government had a cyborg army?
We actually did not, unfortunately.
No cyborg army.
Not that we know of.
RT correspondent Meghan Lopez, thank you.